The whole basis of Buddhism, the whole basis is the theory of reincarnation. The whole basis that Buddhism is based on is the theory of reincarnation. And how that comes about is just not something made up or something that is used to scare young kids or scare us into doing this and that practice. But it is a very, very precise science, or it is a very exact science that is very logical and that can be examined carefully with your own mind, which is originally spoken by Lord Buddha, and later further explained by great masters such as Dhammakiti. And this is one of the main texts that we study in the monasteries. Then Dhammakiti spoke of all phenomena as existing on the basis of continuity or continuum. All objects are on the basis of continuum, continuity. For example, if I gave the example of a piece of paper the other day, a piece of paper, in order for this piece of paper to be here now, it has to have existed a previous moment and a previous moment. It has to have existed yesterday, the day before, and when we go back and back and back and we examine it carefully, it has to have existed at the printer. Before that, it was a pulp or it was recycled. Before that, it was a tree. Before that, it was a sapling and a seed. From that seed, it has to have come from another tree. And therefore, if we go backwards, the same procedure, the previous tree, the previous tree, the previous tree, the previous tree, going back and back and back and back without count or uncountable, innumerable. So therefore, like that, all phenomena that exist in this world is operating on the same basis. Like that, our bodies are operating on the same basis, on the basis of continuity. In order for the body to exist now at 8 o'clock, it must have existed at 7:30, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and so on. It must have existed yesterday, the day before. It must have existed last week, the week before that. It must have existed previous month, the previous month before that. Then how to say last year, the year before that, and have existed back. The body could not have just come out of nowhere. The paper, the book, the cup, the table, the screw, the Bible, the altar, the frames could not have come out of nowhere and just appeared out of the sky and just appeared. It must have had a source. It must have had a previous moment. It must have had a previous continuum moment. Like that, the body must have had a previous moment, going back and back and back. So when we look at the body, logically, it did have a previous moment, at a previous moment, which when we gather on, it gathers a momentum which becomes minutes, becomes hours, it becomes days, becomes months, becomes years, becomes 10 years, and on and on and on and on. So like that, all the way up to the point of our birth. All the way up to the point of our birth, if we were born at 10 o'clock, example, then at 9:59, we must have been inside our mother's womb. Then, just an example. Of course, the labor process takes much more time than that. Then, before that, we must have been in our mother's womb, in our kind mother's womb. Then, 9 months of gestation, inside the mother's womb, and even all the way back, if you go back to the formation of the fetus, back to the very point of conception, where the white cell of the father and the red cell of the mother, as Buddha spoke in the Buddhist, in the Tantras, combine at that moment in order for us to have that moment of conception, or where we were exactly conceived. So if we were conceived, let's say at 9 o'clock, then at 8:59, that white cell and that red cell must have been in our parents, and therefore, that previous moment of our conception, we just didn't conceive out of nowhere. It must have been coming from somewhere. Like that continuity, if we go backwards, that cell went back to our parents. That cell, if we trace back, went to their parents. Their lives went back to the time of their childhood, when they were children. Then that went back to the time when they were in their parents' wombs, and then it went back to their parents and their parents, so on. It is innumerable. It goes back so many thousands and thousands and millenniums, actually. Goes back so many. Like that, we do not have the intellectual or mental capacity to count how many. We do not have the clairvoyance to see how many. But it goes back and back, innumerable, uncountable. Like that, there are definitely a count of the stars in the sky. But it's beyond our mental, human comprehension to see the count, or to be able to count the number of stars in the sky. So we put a label saying innumerable or uncountable. Although there is a count, but it's innumerable, and we leave it at that. Like that, our previous lives are innumerable, as the Buddha states. Innumerable. Therefore, at the moment of conception, we can see very clearly that on a continuous basis, if we bring it back from their parents, our parents, our parents, our parents, and the cells come and it forms inside the mother's womb. And inside the mother's womb, we have been conceived at around 9 o'clock. Example, 9 o'clock up to the point of our birth, 9 approximate months. Our bodies develop to a full fetus until birth. And then it continues up to this very point where we're sitting right now. And like this, in order for it to exist tomorrow, second by second, which means second by second, it must exist, forming minutes, forming hours, forming days, weeks, months, and years, and going on and on and on and like that, continuously, even when our body dies. Even when our body dies, the body physically continues in a different form. The body just doesn't disappear. Whether you're cremated, whether you're burned, or you're interred in the ground, whatever, your body will continue in another form. So, for example, if you're cremated and your ashes are thrown onto the ground, your ashes will be nutrients for nurture, the new form of life that will come out. In fact, your body will take on a new form of life and continue again and again and again, without stop, without end. No matter how minute. So like that, our mind is also a phenomenon. Like the body, like all objects that we can see with our physical eye that is tangible, it is all whole phenomenon. So all phenomenon operate on the basis of continuum. Therefore, the mind is a type of phenomenon. It also operates on a continuum. Like that, in order for your mind to exist now at 8 o'clock, it must have existed at 7:59. At 7 o'clock, on and on and on, backwards, going all the way time to your child, to the time you were very young. And even if you cannot remember clearly what you did when you were 4, what you did when you were 2, what you did when you were 3, what you did when you were 1, even if you didn't remember, even when you were inside your mother's womb, even if you cannot remember what had happened in there, it doesn't deny the fact that it didn't exist. It doesn't deny the fact that it wasn't there simply because you can't remember it. That is illogical. So like that, when you think on a logical basis, you have had a previous life. You have had a previous moment. If you brought your mind continuing back all the way to the point that you were born, then that was brought back to all the way into your mother's womb, and that was brought back 9 months to the point of conception at 9 o'clock when you were conceived. Then, at that point of conception, the white and red cell previous moment, or that cell that combined to form you, that previous moment was from your parents. Now, if you think about it carefully, that is very logical. At 9 o'clock you were conceived, you were existing from 9 o'clock. But what is the continuum if you go backwards at 8:59? Where was your mind at 8:59? Did it just pop out of the sky? Did it just appear with the body? Did it just form with the body? It is illogical. The mind, being a phenomenon, must have had a previous continuum, must have had a previous moment in order for it to exist at 9 o'clock. So therefore, the mind must have been existing at 8:59, 8:58, 8:57, etc., 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So if you were born on the 24th, it must have existed on the 23rd, 22nd, 21st, 20th, 19th, 18th, 17th, 16th, and so on and so on. It must have existed. In order for it to come forward, you must also be able to trace it backwards on a logical basis. If you cannot trace it backwards, how can it go forward? It must have come from somewhere. Therefore, at 9 o'clock when you were conceived, your body would be traced coming from your parents. Where was your mind? Where was your mind at 8:59? As the great Dhammakirti explained. At 8:59, you were in your previous existence, existing in another form, existing in another way, existing in another plane. It can be different planes, it can be in this world in different forms. At 8:58, you were in your different form. At 8:57, you were in your previous form, existing. Therefore, at 8:59, we can just use a simple example. At 8:59, your mind had died. That mind, in order to exist again, by the power of its karma, took on a new form, which took rebirth in the womb of your new mother at 9 a.m. So, the mind entered at 8:59, it continued to 9 o'clock. The body at 8:59 was inside your parents, it continued at 9 o'clock. And from 9 o'clock, your parents' cells combine to grow up to this point. And your mind, which was at 8:59 in another life form, took on rebirth 9 o'clock to continue on up to this point. Likewise, when we go backwards, we can go forward up to this point. So I am approximately 27, 28, or 29 years old, whatever. I'm not sure about my birth date. In our country, we don't keep birth dates. In any case, let's just say that I'm 21. That sounds nicer. We all want to be 21. Okay, so let's say I'm 21. Some of you are laughing because 22. So I'm 22. From 22, I must progress to 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 40, 50, 60. Let's say it's 50. It has to continue from that point. It doesn't continue just from that point. Just from my age of 22 up to 50. It has to have 21, 20 on a logical basis. So let's assume I'm going to die at the age of 50. When I die at the age of 50, when I leave my body, the body will continue in another way. What about the mind? What about the mind? How will it continue? It must exist. It cannot just disappear. This energy cannot just disappear so simply. So if we die, let's say at 12 o'clock, at 12 o'clock your body and its functions cease. Your mind, your body and its functions cease to exist in its present form, will exist in another form. It will go down as nutrients into the ground. Let's make it simple. At 12 o'clock, at 12:01, where's your mind? At 12:02, where's your mind? At 12:03, 12:04, etc., etc., where's your mind? The next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. On a logical basis, your mind works on a continuity. It works continuously. It moves continuously. In order for it to exist at this moment, it has to have a previous moment. In order for it to exist in the future, it must have had this moment. It works on a continuity. Like that, if you say your mind came from your parents, then that's not very logical. Because physically, we have attributes of our parents. If not our parents, at least our grandparents. But mentally, if we check carefully, we are quite different than our parents. The way we think, the way we act, our kids are quite different than us. In fact, the parents' dislikes are usually likes of the kids. And the parents' likes are the dislikes of the children. You can have scientific geniuses as parents, and you can have not very intelligent children. You can have very unintelligent parents and extremely intelligent children. So if the mind was stemming from the parents, then the mind must resemble the parents in every way. What semblance of resemblance we might have to our parents' way of thinking or moving or doing things, it's just a matter of conditioning. When you've been with someone for a very, very long time and you looked up to that person and you only know to do things in this way, then in that way we may do things similarly. But that does not prove that the mind has come from the parents, because the majority of us are quite different than our parents. Our careers and our skills and what we like and what we don't like are quite different from our parents. So on a logical basis, on a logical examination, the mind cannot have existed just at the time of birth. It must have had a previous moment. The mind could not have come from the parents, because if it did, it would have to resemble the parents, like our physical bodies. Even genetically, our diseases sometimes are inherited. It must have come from our parents. But we are completely different than our parents. Completely different. And then that's when the conflict arises. In any case, that's a whole new story. Then, on this basis, Buddha, with his great omniscience and clairvoyance, can put the doctrine of reincarnation in our ordinary worldly terms on that basis. There are actual people who can see clearly, and remember clearly what happened to them when they were 5, what happened to them when they were 4, where they were when they were 1. Even there are people who can remember clearly what they were doing inside the womb, what they were thinking, how they were feeling. There are even people who can remember what they were doing in their previous life. Clearly. Very, very clearly remember what they were doing in their previous lives. And the one before that. By the power of meditation, which I will speak about today, breath meditation, you will be able to unlock the powers of your memory and your mind, which can go back, never mind previous lives, will help you to focus, make your mind straight, powerful, clear, like an arrow, very sharp, that you can remember things when you were very, very young that you can never recall otherwise. And therefore, exploring back to your previous lives, your previous existences, what you were doing. Only a fully enlightened Buddha, fully enlightened being, an enlightened being can see their previous lives clearly, without fault, all the way back. People who have certain meditational abilities can see their previous lives to a certain point and then it stops. And some can see your previous lives to a certain point and stop. But it depends on your meditational abilities. On that basis, Buddhism bases its doctrine on reincarnation. Or reincarnation meaning the mind taking on a new rebirth, taking on a new situation again and again and again and again and again and again, propelled by karma.